in the road. I believe everybody is familiar with a bump on the road. Usually all a bump in the road does is slow us down. And then we resume speed, we're back to normal, and that's kind of what a jump loss is. It temporarily slows us down, we shift a little bit, and you have a little bit of a new perspective, you take time to smell the roses, you see things a little bit differently, and then you're back in the workplace, you're speeding up and everything's the same. Sometimes it's harder for some people to get off the bump, and you get stuck in the unemployment, you can't move on. And what makes it? Why are some people stuck and some people seem to be able to get another job pretty quickly? There's always a month or so when you're sort of figuring out what you want to do, you're getting your resume in order, you're signing up for unemployment. Sometimes people just take some time off and they just reflect and they say, you know, I've been working 60 hours a week for 20 years, I gotta just relax and recover from all of that. And so you intentionally take some time off. But then, well, how do you start? Where do you go? What's step one? And we cover that in our classes that we teach, and we cover that sometimes with the presentations that we make. But for some people, they find that they can't. It's just the things that used to work aren't working. The environment's changed, they've changed, their qualifications aren't quite as marketable as they used to be, they're not quite as attractive as they used to be. Just the world has changed and they can't get off the bump. There are some good reasons. Sometimes even the good reasons become excuses for why this isn't working. So sometimes our skills are not marketable. That's why we have training programs. And I encourage you to take advantage of those once you get started working again. Those things go away. Right now you have an opportunity to get an associate's degree, certainly a certification in a field that's going to help you be more marketable. Take advantage of these programs while applying for them. Fix your skills. Sometimes people just don't even know how to look for a job. Conspicuous illustration of that is a person, some of you have been coming here for a long time, remember, he joined Launchpad a year and a half ago or something like that, and he said he had been laid off after 6 or 7 years of Facebook. And Facebook, we don't really have anybody that comes here from Facebook, but he had been a risk manager among other things, made a fabulous salary. That was a bit of a problem for him getting another job because he made so much money there and he had to keep persuading people that was a fluke. He never intended to, or never expected to make that much again. But he never came to classes. I don't think he thought we could teach anything. He did participate in success, did a fabulous job on some volunteer projects there. But he did what our speaker last week talked about that most people do that they shouldn't do. He waited. He did not have a proactive job search strategy, which is what I teach and what Gary and Neil proposes that you do. And so he would wait for a job to be open. He would wait for a recruiter to call him. He would wait for a hiring manager to say when he could interview. And as a result, his unemployment ran out. And he ended up taking a survival job from 3 to 11 doing inside sales at a security company. And after it looked as though he wasn't going to be able to support his family nor pay bills to keep his house on that salary, he suddenly on his own decided to get more proactive and started made a list of the companies that he wanted to work for. And then went in and said, who do I know at this company? So the company, the job that he got eventually was Accenture. And so he looked at his network and he discovered that there was a former coworker of his in a relatively low position at Accenture. So he said, meet me for lunch, let's talk. And said, I need to get to this person. Can you get me to this person? And I said, oh, no, that's a senior VP. I'm just way down here. I don't have access to him at all. Well, can you get me a little bit closer? Well, I get you my boss. I mean, I have to introduce my boss. That'd be great. Introduce me to your boss. So he met with the boss. I'm trying to reach this person. Can you help me get to that person? And he just kept doing that until eventually he got to that person. And that person had a job not posted and said, yeah, I can totally see that you can do this. This would be great. We'll get you started. And so he got this job, negotiated a really good salary. And it was that job was going to eventually be in Austin, but he ended up with a better opportunity that caused him to move away. So he was on our board of directors briefly, and now he's moved to Tennessee. But the point is, he got more active. So he didn't have job search skills. He had to get them on his own, read books, go to classes, go to speakers, hear lots of people about how to do this, how to make this work for you. So, no job search skills. Sometimes people don't get hired because of the way they look. It's not fair, it's not right. You might be the best qualified person, but there's something about your presentation that's off-putting. Maybe you just don't even have confidence. Maybe it has nothing to do with hygiene or the way you're dressed or anything. But you don't have confidence. That problem is going to be addressed with our speaker starting next week. Eleanor is going to talk about that. We're going to have 2 weeks in a row on the same topic. There's an example for somebody. It could be that he's a really well-qualified person, and there are some companies in Austin where that look, we really should have another row of lights turned off, I think, where that look is not going to be a problem. For those of you who can't see him very well, he is multiply pierced and overall tattooed. And so he could probably get a job on 6th Street, maybe Whole Foods, a little more upscale on 6th Street, but in this office, no, not even an office. I don't think so. So sometimes it's just how you're presented. Sometimes people can't get jobs. The reason is that there's limited transportation, so that's a bit of an issue. Sometimes they don't have any motivation. They give up too soon. You know, they've knocked on 2 doors, and when they try to knock on that 3rd door, it's like, I'm going to the bar. They just can't take it. They can't take the rejection. They say, nobody's hiring. Well, those 2 places aren't hiring. But there's certainly a lot of hiring going on. And then you get depressed. And then you don't have any motivation to go keep on keeping on. Discrimination. Lots of you in this room have dealt with multiple kinds of discrimination. Gender discrimination, age discrimination, racial discrimination. We've had people here that are obviously from one religion or another, and sometimes I would imagine that even in an accepting and welcoming place like Lansford, you get discrimination for that reason as well. It exists. It could be a reason, but it should never be an excuse. Move on. Stay lost. Sometimes your strategy is the same one as our Facebook fan. Your strategy is sitting waiting for somebody to contact you. I hear this every single week. People will say, I've never had to look for a job. Jobs always came to me. People always were calling me and offering me jobs. I've never had to look for a job before. I'm 55 years old and I've never had an interview. I just got hired. Yeah, well, times have changed. Now you gotta work for it. You gotta work. It's harder. The older you get, the harder it is. And then there's that thing about so lots of people have excuses. But we've had some successes lately, and I wanted to go over those really quickly. Amy used to volunteer at our reception desk. She decided, since she didn't have a job, that she was going to create an employment presence for herself. Started a business as a consultant and got a few little contract jobs. And eventually got a job offer with one of her client companies, which was Lansford-Powell Culinary School. And in spite of the fact that before she was a VP of operations, she said she wants her new job. And she is a registrar and we're starting something else. I think the operations there as well, but it's a totally different industry, but she's still doing operational kinds of work, and she loves it, and I'm sure she's getting lots of great food. Nokia, some of you remember her. Because she had an unusual career field for this group. She wanted to be a theology professor. She had a master's degree in theology, and it was very difficult for her because most places said, well, you have to have a PhD, you have to go through seminary. And so instead of continuing to beat her head against that wall where people said you're not qualified, at the schools that she could get to around here, she decided instead, where would I like to work? What companies could help me further my career? And she decided the Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary would be a good place for her. So she got a foot-in-the-door job with them as a receptionist, and discovered that they will allow her to go to classes there. She's going to be able to get a PhD in theology through them for free, I think, or a huge discount. And they're going to promote her up through the ranks, and she might be able to be some sort of an instructor of some pieces of what she wants to do even now with her master's. So it's a different approach. She had a time frame. One of the things that we teach in our classes is that we should have a schedule. I'm going to hold out for the perfect job for this amount of time. And then after that, for the next few months, I'm going to take something that's not quite as good. And then after that, for the next month, I'm going to take something that I really don't exactly want, but I'm going to consider something else. And then you've got a survival job where you're going to be on luck. So at any rate, that job that she wants. Carol was somebody who volunteered to Lead to Success. We always encourage you to volunteer when you're unemployed. Not only will it do marvelous things for your own self-confidence and sense of purpose and your pride. You're helping somebody else, you're being productive, it's something that you can leverage. But she ended up going to work for the client, for the Lead to Success proper client that she had worked for. So they saw her in a work capacity, even though she wasn't getting paid. They were impressed with that, and she got hired. One of our people from Jackson went to school, obtained certification through one of these government-sponsored programs, and was able to land a job in a new career field because it was such a high-demand career field that they said, we don't care that your experience has been limited, we want you anyway. That little bit of new training, recent training, certification, that piece of paper got it into an interview, and that combined with what he had done before got him a job. Paul attended a class on how to fill out the state application. I teach that class on Tuesdays. And he said he had been applying for state jobs forever, months, and not been able to get an interview. And with the tricks that he learned in the state application class, he suddenly is getting quite a few state interviews and ended up with 2 offers, the better of which he took. So he's now working for the state. Norma, lots of you know Norma. Norma Hernandez was a key member, major member of our Toastmaster group, which is going to meet here, by the way, at 12. And she was a marvelous volunteer at our mock interview sessions, which we do on Thursdays. She asked wonderful questions and gave terrific evaluations. And she decided she had taken a survival job another time when she'd been laid off. Lots of people are serial layoffs, and so she had come back a couple times. But one time she took a survival job in a call center where she worked very long hours for such a little bit of money and it was so mind-numbing that she said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to settle. I'm going to get a job back at Dell. I know the Dell culture. I know how to be successful at Dell. And so she targeted that one company and sent out 15 or 20 resumes a week for different kinds of Dell jobs. And of course, there's lots of different, she knew lots of people in different departments. But she knew if she just kept interviewing and kept applying, that the right combination was going to be there. And she did get a permanent job at Dell. And so she kept working at it. Everybody, you try different things. tried different things, but you cannot rest. I tell people all the time that looking for a job is like looking for a spouse. And if the perfect company closed its doors and went out of business, emotionally, you have a similar emotional response as you would if you were a widow. In that you have nothing but good memories about that job and that company, and it becomes the standard by which you evaluate all your future jobs. Just as a great spouse becomes the standard by which you evaluate all your lesser spouses. Yes, to talk about spouses. And if you, and on the other hand, if you were terminated or laid off, especially if you were fired, it has a very similar emotional reaction to having to being divorced, because you were rejected and somebody else was retained. And so we look to see, well, who was retained? And it's like, really? Huh. You kept that yo-yo that comes in late, leaves early. Lay me off with my dedication to the job. But if I'd known that's the way you wanted to be treated, I could have treated you like that. And suddenly, it is indistinguishable from divorce talk. But where was I going with this? I'm sure there was an affection or something. I know where I was going. But the difference, one major difference between looking for the spouse and looking for the job is that if you had a painful separation in a marriage or a relationship, you can take all the time you want to get over that, to heal. To rebuild your confidence before you decide that you're going to perhaps venture out and try another relationship. You don't get that when you lose a job. You may need to heal. You don't get that. You got bills to pay. You got a family to support. You got to get back out there, damaged and bloodied and scarred and stabbed up. You got to get back out there and say, I'm wonderful. I'm fabulous. You should hire me. And that is a huge challenge. That is a huge challenge. You just don't have we don't have the bandwidth, or we don't have the savings, we don't have the money to tide us over while we recover from that job loss. And so lots of job seekers are kind of walking wounded, trying to put on a happy face. It's all about attitude, right? Well, how are you going to have a positive attitude when somebody's just cut you off at the knees and said you weren't useful anymore? It's a horrendous obligation and barrier that you have to try to overcome. And people don't get the counseling and the nurturing that you need. That's one of the reasons that we try to treat them so well. It's a small thing, but we feed you, we love you. So we want to keep you going and remind you how terrific you are. So what is the formula? If you were to say three things, looking at some of those people that got jobs, what are three attributes, three characteristics, three activities that led to success? Who can give me one three-word combination? Raise your hand so you can all shout out at once. Okay. Right. Persistence. I think that's a good one. Initiative.
Positive attitude.
You know, that's interesting. Persistence, initiative, positive attitude. Here's the three that I came up with. Attitude. Open-mindedness. That's just because you should consider some things that perhaps you wouldn't have considered normally. And persistence. And I think that those things equal success. And you can choose whatever three words you want. But none of this happens when you sit at home. None of this happens when you say, I have to have this job, and if I don't get this job, I'm not going to take any job. You have to be collaborative, you have to be open. And another thing that frequently happens for success is that you have to help others. Once you get off, you're being self-centered and focusing only on your needs and your pain and your fear, and say, I'm going to see how many other people I can help find a job. Very often, just changing that perspective leads to success. It kind of comes in the back door when you hadn't expected it. Some of you may have seen this. It's only peripherally related to what I'm telling you now, but I love this. It was something that I think came out on LinkedIn, maybe possibly in our Launchpad site and discussion group. But it was somebody saying, oh, I think they were from England, so it definitely wasn't somebody from Launchpad. But they were saying, today is my father's birthday. He is 92. And it had a picture of a nice looking man. I would never have thought he was 92. He was kind of, so he was probably in his 70s maybe. And they said he's still working. He is an organist at some college or some church, college or something like that. And said, so he works and he teaches music to students. He walks for an hour outside every day. And then spends 2 hours inside doing exercises every day. He reads 5 books a week. He does his own shopping and his own cooking. And he was in World War II as a pilot for the Royal Air Force. A lot of you saw that. I printed it out and I thought, I have a father right now who's the opposite of all of that. Dying, not moving, not anything, not anything. It's just so sad because he's just everything that this guy is not. And I thought, not only is that a recipe for longevity, that is a recipe for life. He has action, move, action, sharing, teaching, helping, learning, and the arts, creative, music. 4 things: action, learning, helping, creativity. 4 things. That's what you need in your life. That's what you need for old age. That's what you need in your families. That's what you need in your job search. So it all makes sense. I want to read you, this is another thing that some of you may have already seen. I want to read you this story. I'm going to be very fast because I want you to see a TED Talk too. This is a thing about a lady named Ramona Pearson. She was a 22-year-old Marine writing algorithms to help guide U.S. military missions in April 1984. We were doing everything that Google Earth does now, she says, of those 3 infinite days, except we were doing it on our own. Along with being a math whiz, Pearson was a competitive athlete, training for her 12th marathon. After a day spent at the now-closed air station El Toro near Irvine, California, she was on a 13-mile run with her dog Chips, when a drunk driver tore through a red light and hit them. Chips died instantly. As the car ran over Pearson, her left leg got caught in the wheel well, which spun her around, and the bumper sliced her throat. I remember putting my hands on the ground and feeling my life's blood emptying out of my neck and my mouth. This is the most amazing thing. A passerby, this is like something on Touched by an Angel. A passerby plunged the tube of a ballpoint pen into Pearson's neck to open her airway, and a second pin in her chest to ventilate a collapsed lung. She spent 18 months in a drug-induced coma. When she emerged, she weighed 64 pounds and was blind. The accident had detached her retinas and destroyed her cornea. She couldn't walk, eat, or speak. Estranged from her family after a troubled childhood, she was moved from one Veterans Affairs hospital to another. They basically put a map on the wall and threw dart and landed on a senior citizens home in Colorado. And that turned out to be a lucky hit, so they essentially sent her to this senior citizens home to die. Nobody thought I was going to live except her fellow residents. She became their pet project. Over the next 2 years, they helped her relearn how to walk, talk, and eat. Imagine having 100 grandparents focused just on you. Every hour of every day was spent trying to figure out how to bring you back. The seniors, she said, had incredible skills and talent. They also had wisdom because they had long lives, and at that moment in my life, I really needed wisdom. For instance, as an adult relearning the ability to walk, Kirsten felt subconscious, so the men made it fun for her, teaching her cuss word Scrabble at night. Incentive. Later, those devoted grandparents raised money so that she could have a guide dog and attend a Braille Institute. So now, this fabulous, brilliant person had to learn a whole new way to read, to write, to speak, to communicate. Over the next 25 years, she lived as Humpty Dumpty in roughly 100 surgeries. Doctors gave her a plastic nose, pulled parts from a cadaver to keep her heart beating, restored her face with fat from her buttocks, rebuilt her feet and legs with titanium. At the end of my life, she quips, they're going to melt me down and turn me into a titanium bite. After 11 years of blindness, cutting-edge surgery restored the sight in one eye. 17 years after that, and we go back, this is like in the future, in early 2012, she's 50 years old by then, she launched a company called Declara. Her second high-tech startup, the first was an education-related company called Synaptic Nash. I'll tell you about that later. Combining the power of a search engine with the collaborative reach of social networking, this Palo Alto, California-based tech platform enables all sorts of people and businesses to collect, organize, and share information in radically new ways. If any of you want to look that up, Declara. Declara uses innovative forms of artificial intelligence and cognitive science to curate customized on-demand content that stays one step ahead of users, providing answers to questions they haven't thought yet to pose. It also can bring together experts across different companies, industries, and countries. For example, researchers who are all investigating the same genetic phenotype. That collaboration could potentially reduce the cost and time of developing cancer-fighting agents. Think of Declara as a mashup of Google, Facebook, Twitter, and a brainier Pinterest. Before the accident, learning had been effortless for her. Her test scores were so high when she was enrolled at the University of California, Berkeley, that the Marines offered to cover the cost of the remaining 2 years in college if she would enlist. After the coma, she labored at learning how to function as a blind person. Everyday actions such as crossing the street, lighting a backyard barbecue pose huge, potentially deadly challenges. More challenges came with relearning to navigate the world as a sighted person. You would think it would have been easy to bounce back. After all of those years, it was not. As a blind person, your visual memory fades and is replaced with how you feel about things and how things sound and smell. In the process of adapting and readapting, she gained empathy for people that she calls differently abled. Obviously, she had to give up her goal of becoming a cardiologist, but the Marines gave her a sense of grit, which we didn't put on the list, always felt mission-driven. She said, when horrible things happen, you have two choices. One is to be bitter and constantly replay things, but you can't change the past. You can only change the path you are on, which applies to job seekers as well. So the choice I made to determine my path forward, she committed her life to education because so many people, beginning with those at the senior center, had committed themselves to re-educate and to rebuild me. She worked to complete an undergraduate degree in psychology, and she persevered in spite of the fact that it was very difficult for a blind person. They did not make it easy for her. She taught herself computer programming so she could invent technology that would make it easier for her and other blind students to graduate. After her bachelor's degree, she received a master's degree in education, a PhD in neuroscience from Stanford. Between 2002 and 2003, she attended the elite Danforth Educational Leadership Program in Washington. She maintained her athletic pursuits. Very difficult to be athletic when you're blind. She became a rock climber, railing, as she puts it, indoor rock walls and later at outdoor peaks. She also competed in tandem bike races, riding with a sighted partner, won the world championship in Russia. In '95, the same year, she regained partial sight. She raced solo, was named USA Cycling Master Cyclist of the Year. Even before rocket ship and developed half a dozen impressive resumes. During the first Gulf War, she developed technology that prevented desert sand from distorting magnetic resonance images that surgeons would reference while operating on soldiers who'd been shot. Anyway, she kept doing more and more and more. She got a fellowship from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to burrow deep into how students learn. She moved to Seattle, collected data from 50,000 students, and then spent 4 years as the director of technology for Seattle schools. She left a 60,000-year job to focus on her first startup, Synaptic Land, an educational software startup that would be acquired 3 years later for $10 million by a British interactive learning company. It just goes on and on and on, all the stuff that she's done. But she never let any of this horrible stuff stop her. She kept learning, she kept moving, she was active, she was sharing, she was helping others, and she was being creative, all in spite of that. And if you want to stay for 10 minutes, we have a cool TED Talk that is called Embrace the Shake.
So when I was in art school, I developed a shake in my hand, and this was the straightest line I could draw. Now, in hindsight, it was actually good for some things like mixing a can of paint or shaking a Polaroid. But at the time, this was really doomsday. This was the destruction of my dream of becoming an artist. The shake developed out of really a single-minded pursuit of pointillism, just years of making tiny, tiny dots. And eventually, these dots went from being perfectly round to looking more like tadpoles because of the shake. So to compensate, I'd hold the pen tighter, and this progressively made the shake worse, so I'd hold the pen tighter still. And this became a vicious cycle that ended up causing so much pain and joint issues, I had trouble holding anything. And after spending all my life wanting to do art, I left art school, and then I left art completely. But after a few years, I just couldn't stay away from art, and I decided to go to a neurologist about the shake and discovered I had permanent nerve damage. And he actually took one look at my squiggly line and said, well, why don't you just embrace the shake? So I did. I went home, I grabbed a pencil, and I just started letting my hand shake and shake. I was making all these scribble pictures. And even though it wasn't the kind of art that I was ultimately passionate about, it felt great. And more importantly, once I embraced the shake, I realized I could still make art. I just had to find a different approach to making the art that I wanted. Now, I still enjoyed the fragmentation of pointillism, seeing these little tiny dots come together to make this unified whole. So I began experimenting with other ways to fragment images where the shake wouldn't affect the work, like dipping my feet in paint and walking on a canvas. Or in a 3D structure consisting of 2x4s, creating a 2D image by burning it with a blowtorch. I discovered that if I worked in a larger scale and with bigger materials, my hand really wouldn't hurt. And after having gone from a single approach to art, I ended up having an approach to creativity that completely changed my artistic horizons. This was the first time I'd encountered this idea that embracing a limitation could actually drive creativity. At the time, I was finishing up school, and I was so excited to get a real job and finally afford new art supplies. I had this horrible little set of tools, and I felt like I could do so much more with the supplies I thought an artist was supposed to have. I actually didn't even have a regular pair of scissors. I was using these metal shears until I stole a pair from the office that I worked at. So I got out of school, I got a job, I got a paycheck, I got myself to the art store, and I just went nuts buying supplies. And then when I got home, I sat down and I set myself to task to really try to create something just completely outside of the box. But I sat there for hours, and nothing came to mind. The same thing the next day, and then the next, quickly slipping into a creative slump. And I was in a dark place for a long time, unable to create. And it didn't make any sense because I was finally able to support my art, and yet I was creatively blank. But as I searched around in the darkness, I realized I was actually paralyzed by all of the choices that I never had before. And it was then that I thought back to my jittery hands, embrace the shake. And I realized if I ever wanted my creativity back, I had to quit trying so hard to think outside of the box and get back into it. I wondered, could you become more creative then by looking for limitations? What if I could only create with $1's worth of supplies? At this point, I was spending a lot of my evenings in, well, I guess I still spend a lot of my evenings in Starbucks, but I know you can ask for an extra cup if you want one. So I decided to ask for 50. Surprisingly, they just handed them right over, and then with some pencils I already had, I made this project for only 80 cents. It really became a moment of clarification for me that we need to first be limited in order to become limitless. I took this approach of thinking inside the box to my canvas and wondered, what if instead of painting on a canvas, I could only paint on my chest? So I painted 30 images, one layer at a time, one on top of another, with each picture representing an influence in my life. Or what if instead of painting with a brush, I could only paint with karate chops? So I dipped my hands in paint, and I just attacked the canvas, and I actually hit so hard that I bruised a joint in my pinky, and it was stuck straight for a couple weeks. Or what if instead of relying on myself, I had to rely on other people to create the content for the art? So for 6 days, I lived in front of a webcam, I slept on the floor, and I ate takeout. And I asked people to call me and share a story with me about a life-changing moment. Their stories became the art as I wrote them onto the revolving canvas. Or what if instead of making art to display, I had to destroy it? This seemed like the ultimate limitation, being an artist without art. This destruction idea turned into a year-long project that I called Goodbye Art, where each and every piece of art had to be destroyed after its creation. In the beginning of Goodbye Art, I focused on forced destruction, like this image of Jimi Hendrix, made with over 7,000 matches. Then I opened it up to creating art that was destroyed naturally. I looked for temporary materials, like spitting out food, sidewalk chalk, and even frozen wine. The last iteration of destruction was to try to produce something that didn't actually exist in the first place. So I organized candles on a table, I lit them and then blew them out. Then repeated this process over and over with the same set of candles. Then assembled the videos into the larger image. So the end image was never visible as a physical whole. It was destroyed before it ever existed. In the course of this Goodbye Art series, I created 23 different pieces with nothing left to physically display. What I thought would be the ultimate limitation actually turned out to be the ultimate liberation, as each time I created, the destruction brought me back to a neutral place where I felt refreshed and ready to start the next project. It did not happen overnight. There were times when my projects failed to get off the ground, or even worse, after spending tons of time on them, the end image was kind of embarrassing. But having committed to the process, I continued on, and something really surprising came out of this. As I destroyed each project, I was learning to let go. Let go of outcomes, let go of failures, and let go of imperfections. And in return, I found a process of creating art that's perpetual and unencumbered by results. I found myself in a state of constant creation, thinking only of what's next and coming up with more ideas than ever. When I think back to my 3 years away from art, away from my dream, just going through the motions, instead of trying to find a different way to continue that dream, I just quit. I gave up. And what if I didn't embrace the shake? Because embracing the shake for me wasn't just about art and having art skills. It turned out to be about life and having life skills. Because ultimately, most of what we do takes place here, inside the box with limited resources. Learning to be creative within the confines of our limitations is the best hope we have to transform ourselves and collectively transform our world. Looking at limitations as a source of creativity changed the course of my life. Now, when I run into a barrier or I find myself creatively stumped, I sometimes still struggle, but I continue to show up for the process and try to remind myself of the possibilities, like using hundreds of real live worms to make an image, using a pushpin to tattoo a banana, or painting a picture with hamburger grease. One of my most recent endeavors is to try to translate the habits of creativity that I've learned into something others can replicate. Limitations may be the most unlikely of places to harness creativity, but perhaps one of the best ways to get ourselves out of ruts, rethink categories, and challenge accepted norms. And instead of telling each other to seize the day, maybe we can remind ourselves every day to seize the limitation. Thank you.